So, Kate, I'd like to ask you, in your book, Lowell is, as you describe it, is a character. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me a bit about how the city is a character in your collection, The Drift?
Well,
how does it act as a character, you think?
It's hard to explain without giving a little bit of a backstory, which, I feel like, I grew up in a very Catholic household.
Okay.
I moved to Lowell for college, my undergrad. And so when I spent the entire duration of my 20s in Lowell. And I think for me, living in Lowell and being in that sort of environment that was new to me, being exposed to the harsh realities of city life. I come from Andover. I feel was a little bit of a redefining moment for me spiritually. At the time, and it was early 2000s, everything was being renovated. Mm-hmm. Like mill buildings are being...
What time we're talking about?
We're talking 2000 to 2009. Mm-hmm. Everything was being renovated, mill buildings, streets, buildings, everything. So I felt like I was also spiritually being renovated. And as far as Lowell being a character, it's to me as much palpable as anything else. When you talk about place as a subject, there's a presence there, whether or not you want to admit it or not. And so for me, I was always latching on to that sense of presence that Lowell gave me. And it was almost a godlike thing. And so...
Godlike, you said?
Godlike, yeah. I think because,
By the way, where's your microphone? Oh, right there. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Right here. Right here.
Okay.
I mentioned before in another interview, I think, that, to me, Lowell, like God, is, or any place, Somerville.
A lot of people would be shocked for you to compare Lowell to God.
Well,
no, I know what you mean. I'm just saying, like Lynn or something.
No, but it's the object of a one-sided relationship.
Right.
It's a void that you feel somehow obligated to fill.
Now, from what I'm reading, look, when we're young, we all have our issues and experiences. I certainly did when I was in Boston in the 70s. But it seemed to me that you had a hard scrabble time of it when you were in law. I mean, I don't want to mistake you for being the poet, for actually being the person that the poem is talking about. Yeah. But I mean, could I assume that you had some tough going there in Lowell in your younger years?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I said, I felt like I encountered a lot of things that I had never seen before. Just some things that were simple city life, prostitution, homelessness.
All right, and Andover is very much sort of broad.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't grow up in McMansion or anything. I'm actually old Andover, Ballard Vale, which is sort of the other side of the tracks. But
why did you choose Lowell as opposed to Boston or Cambridge or?
I don't know.
You don't know.
I kind of just landed there.
Oh, you were in school there, right?
Yeah, I went to school. I did my undergrad there. I kind of landed there. I didn't really choose Lowell. But when I got there, I felt very much at home, I think, because, well, I'm a little nervous by nature. And so Lowell to me was just the right kind of city that suited me, because it wasn't like, I felt like at certain points, at any given time of day, I could stand on a downtown sidewalk and be by myself and feel okay with that. I get very overwhelmed by busy cities and lots of people and stuff. And Lowell has this sort of energy. I know Paul Marion was on last week or 2 weeks ago, and he mentioned a little bit of it, that the history, and that the backstory of what Lowell is, I really feel that energy is so palpable and just kind of lingers, that you can't help but feel it when you're there, even if you're all by yourself. And so I really latched onto that energy, and I felt like it became a muse. And so I took all of the things that I saw or experienced and channeled that into this book, which at the time I was getting my MFA, so it was, I had to create like a.
So this was your thesis,
yeah.
kind of, yeah.
Well, this is sort of, it's not next level of thesis, like this, the revision of the thesis.
Now, I get a sense of reading these poems, at least at this time, that this sense of disappearing and, loss and things like that. Could you just maybe expand on that for us? Expand on what I was saying.
Yeah, I think, when I talk about like redefining spirituality, I think, humans by nature are drawn to mystery, right? And that as far as when, however you want to define your relationship with God or the universe or whatnot, that's an absence or, a mystery that I think we're always trying to understand. And so for me, writing bridges that gap. And I think just like people use all sorts of ways to bridge the gap, art, religion, rosary beads, whatever.
Wall carpeting, yeah.
Yeah, but whatever it is to sort of, it's like cathexis or whatever.
What I was going to say is that, law, in fact, this one really sort of, they say a good poem will make you cut yourself when you shave. And one of those was about the Alzheimer's of your grandmother, I believe, and you got it down, when she was totally gone, you got it down to just a throat. You talk a bit about that poem and its creation.
Yeah, that one's hard. When I move into the family poems in this book, my grandmother was on her last leg of Alzheimer's during the time that I was writing this. I think it, that particular poem, and just seeing her come down to just a body, just a machine, to lose everything and be just a machine, just a body that was wheeled around from the bed to the window.
That wonderful image of the rosary beads talking for her.
Yeah, and that sort of just, you losing yourself with every, I just have this image of, I'm a constant, because I grew up in a Catholic household, kind of clicking away.
Are you religious?
I'm spiritual.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that I'm entirely religious anymore, but the idea of like clicking away the rosary beads and almost counting down the last moments of yourself. And so, that was what I imagined for her. I don't know if she really had that if she ever thought that or felt that, but, that's what I felt as I watched her sort of fade away,
Now, your language is kind of, and I like poems like that, it's kind of stripped down. There's nothing, as one person said, there's nothing florid about it. I don't see purple prose. It's sort of straight, no chaser. This is your style.
Yeah.
And your philosophy behind that, or it's just natural. That's just an organic thing that just comes out of you. Or.
Well, in terms of my feeling of language, it's like that's, my dad plays guitar.
Okay.
I feel like words are my guitar.
Okay.
That I know how to strum the right chords, or at least I think I do, but strum the right chords at the right time to create a certain effect. But you have to know when it's time to just play like a simple chord. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And so I love to be lyrical when I write. I love language, but I also love to be plain spoken. And I think that's maybe the paradox of my personality, because, part of me is very dark, lyrical, and, the other part of me is a little bit silly.
Right. But you know, these Lowell poems, you know, you have a lot of baggage from Lowell, and you're moving on to something else now, aren't you, in terms of your poetry? Could you maybe talk a bit about that?
Yeah. So
you're now in Groton,
Yep. Yeah. So I moved away.
Oh, Groton, right? Yeah.
Groton. Yeah. So I moved away from Lowell, got married, had 3 children.
That sort of changes your perspective, doesn't it?
Oh, it changes everything. It changes everything.
Yeah.
And not just, you know, I was happy to move on from the material from Midrift, because that was, you know, that was a time and a place, and that was my subject, and that was what, you know, that was what I was writing about. I'm happy to move on. I moved to Groton, started having a family, and it does change how you think of your voice as a writer. You know, I'm no longer writing for me. I'm split emotionally, I'm split mentally, I'm split physically. You know, because I've got a family, and it's very hard to.
I always ask poets. You know, you always think of the wild poet, the you know bohemian, you know, with the flowing skirt and the raven hair running around. Does the domesticity, does that help or hinder you with your poetry, you think?
It did both. I think you know, I liked the quiet of Groton. I was happy to move to Groton. You know, I've always wanted kids, and I started to become obsessed a little bit with the shift. I did like the idea of shifting to nature. You know, I started to become obsessed with this idea of crow funerals, and that's sort of this project that I'm working on, where, you know, I don't know if you ever heard of a crow funeral.
No, it's a funeral for a crow, or?
Yeah, it's like this alleged phenomenon that happens when crows recognize one of their fallen crows. And supposedly, I've never witnessed it personally, although I've seen like videos on YouTube. But
I saw the ones with turkeys circling a dead dog, and there was some sort of ritual. No,
similar, maybe.
Like a whole day, but anyway.
The idea is that like crows come and mourn their dead, they're fallen. And it's supposed to be this just overwhelming thing where all these crows come and they, you know, it's like this big cacophony and amazing ritual, and people who witness it say that, you know, it's mind-blowing. And so anyway, I got into that. I started following that because people said that crows, you know, out of all the birds are most like humans. And there was all the speculation. Like I said, humans are drawn to mystery. You know, do crows mourn their dead? You know, or you know, do crows have funerals? Do they have emotions? What is it all about? And so I've been sort of following along with that and getting really into the idea of just the primal animal instincts that are within all of us. And you know, coincidentally, at the same time, I'm having babies. You know, and I'm doing like the most primal thing a human could do. And so I got very much obsessed with the neurological wiring of that process. And so as I was going through it, you know, unbeknownst to me, after my 3rd child, I definitely, you know, I started to experience postpartum depression and anxiety to levels that were, you know.
Well, I've worked at McLean Hospital for 35 years, so I've seen a lot of that. Yeah.
And I mean, it's scary levels where, you know, I was tested for all sorts of things, and but I didn't know what was going on. And so then it kind of turned my whole project on its head, you know, because here I am focusing on, you know, what it's like to be neurologically wired, and here I am, you know, becoming neurologically unwired, and how to make sense of that. And I felt there was a redefinition of, you know, who I was as a writer through that process. And so that's kind of where I stand right now. I'm still kind of in it.
The postpartum.
No,
but
just making sense of what happened and how to change my project, which was all about, you know, birds and human instinct and, you know, and that sort of thing, and incorporating motherhood into that and reality. And also, you know, the whole thing to me is a little bit of an elegy. Like, I feel like it's an elegy of childhood, an elegy of self, an elegy of, you know, people. But I don't see elegy as, you know, a terrible thing. I see it as like a bridge, you know, to the next thing when you acknowledge the loss.
Everything's about passages.
Yeah.
Now, you went to the Bennington writing seminars. Is that where you got your MFA? And any influential teachers there? That's what do you call it? Well, anyway, I'm sure there were. Anyone that influenced you a great deal?
Yeah, I mean, all of the writers that I worked with Major Jackson.
You know, we had him on here with Alpha Michael Weaver years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he's great.
Yeah.
He was actually the first writer that I worked with, and I worked with Timothy Liu, Amy Gersler, Michael Burkhardt, and everybody was just fantastic. They were all different. They all influenced me different ways. They all mentored me differently, and they were all very super supportive.
Good.
So.
Now, briefly, then you'll read from your work. How'd you find the Loon Press?
Oh, well.
How did you find them?
So Paul Marion, he's
and he did and published this book, Midriff. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's always just been just an unbelievable community cultural advocate. I mean, it's such a selfless job that he does, and so I've known him. I knew him in the Lowell community, writing this book that was so Lowell based. And Lowell influenced. It seemed silly not to go to him and present him with the manuscript and ask him if he was interested in publishing it.
Did you take it right away, or?
No, he was like, no, he liked it. Yeah, he's always been my biggest cheerleader. And you know, Loon Press is a wonderful, wonderful press, and just his, you know, once you publish with Loon Press, you sort of join a family. And, you know, even now, you know, this book was published in 2011, and he's still my biggest cheerleader. And
it's a great thing to have.
Yeah.
Now, could you read from your work? Whatever you want to read. Yes.
Yeah, I can read from Midriff first
Whatever
if you want.
It's up to you.
Sure. I guess I'll read maybe one of the, talking about spirituality, I'll read. There are several prayer poems in this book in which I, you know, talking about redefining relationship with God. So this is one in the series of poems titled Prayer, in which I sort of address God directly on my own terms. And,
okay.
So prayer. Along the river walk, refuse skirts the southern bank. White foam pools below the cantilever. I've come here because I don't expect to be found. Dear God, what should we make of what has gone wrong with my life? All day I could watch dead water. I'm in love with a lunatic. I drink too much, and I no longer believe in recovery. I want back what disappears into the crook of the canal. Dear God, this is my persistent letter, my pinched bead, my hymn that tolls and darkens. This is my church bell shaking off the birds. And then I have a poem, Mill City.
Do you know what I think I forgot to do in the beginning is read a bio of you. Yeah. Did you notice that?
Well, you screwed up.
I know. But you have other books to you. We know that you went to Bennington, you graduated UMass Lowell, and what else?
Well, Kate Hanson.
Those are the major things. This is your first book?
This is my first book.
And you're working on a second?
And I'm working on a second.
Okay. All right. And
I've been published in a few places.
Right. Some nice places, just like some really good magazines.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Just thought I'd add that in.
Okay. All right, so this is called Mill City. No human echo, just a hum that drips from the street wires, a pulse that lets loose from the glass of vacant storefronts, My mind is filthy with old, dear secrets. Another room sinks into its pine boards and someone comes to assign value. Pull sewage out of the canal. So much left over from so much ordinary life. I am seduced by the red X on buildings where no one bothers. Another ceiling gives in and my gutters fill. It is the unlit room, the window pane that keeps hold of that flat ochre light. It is absence, and not even post and beam can escape the flutter of that gray wing. Hang on. A crack opens another foundation, something in the flesh trying to beat its way out. Just watch it go. So,
Continue.
well, I thought maybe I would switch to some of the stuff.
Whatever you want. It's your game. You're promoting yourself.
Right.
Go ahead. Yeah. I don't put any restrictions on whatever the artist wants to read.
I want to read. I will read what I think will be the title poem of this next manuscript.
Oh, right. And is the Loon Press doing it?
I don't know, but
Okay.
I think Paul Marion would be very supportive no matter what I decide to do.
Okay.
This actual poem is because I was discussing crow funerals, so I thought maybe I would read it. This is a poem titled Crow Funeral, which I think will be the title poem. It was published in Tupelo Quarterly. It was one of the semifinalists.
Fine press. That's a great press.
Yeah, it was one of the semifinalists for the Poetry Prize. So
Should have read your bio. Oh boy.
yeah,
That would have been in there.
one of the. Sorry.
But at least you're saying it. Yeah.
All right. So this is Crow Funeral. No one notices the dead crow alongside the road. Soft underbelly exposed, neck broken from the fall. No one hears the Harpocratic ghost among leaves. The muteness of all is said and done, the last invisible breath in an air sac, breaking out, breaking away. We hear the murder, the hysterical, full to bursting cries, hundreds of wings collecting in ceremony like a starless lake no one can enter. No one sees the plane vanish over the ocean. No one feels the thick multitude of salt and sky take hold, metal cutting or not cutting the water, and how the earth goes on breathing, stubborn in its own perpetuity. We let our voices explode between us. The TV glows and hums an ongoing procession of make meaning. Make me understand. Why can't we put our finger on this and drag it back like an oil slick across a computer screen? The crows scold loudly as if to say, look at one of us fallen. See the danger. Feel how it hurts. The dead crow sizzling on the pavement like a fallen roof shingle. So nothing. So gone, this thing we have lost. No one finds the plane. Instead, we count the days since the vanishing. A digital clock spins numbers like a tiny planet on the corner of the TV. Headlines roll and ask questions. Is this God? Is this terror? Someone needs to find the plane, find the answer. The crows disperse slowly, silently, a few at a time, and then more. They know sooner or later to move on. The clouds always let go. The wind falls apart. Everyone knows sooner or later we have to stop counting. There will be something new to cry out for, something else to gather and dress us all in black. And there will be urns and roses, a chorus of music. A poem or a prayer will get it just right. God or no God, let us make it more than what it is.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. Keep going.
Okay.
You got a few more minutes.
All right.
And for the sake of the tape, we keep, if we go off the air, we'd keep the tape going. So go ahead.
Right. Well, I'll read. I have two more.
Okay. You got about 4 minutes.
Perfect. So this is a poem about sort of me dealing with postpartum anxiety and stuff, and that kind of transition that happened. It's called "You Should Know." You should know it hurts, I think to myself. Her lips are wrapped around my nipple. mouth pulling with all she has. Her new body wired for this, my third child. Like the others, a good latch from the start. It has always been easy for me to offer my body over this way. Days pass and my nipples begin to dry and crack. Sometimes exposure to air stings when I unbutton my shirt, but I've learned to keep the coconut oil to them, turn my back in the shower, dab, do not rub, with a towel. My husband knows they are not his while they are hers. You should know how much I have to give up for this, I want to tell her. My days measured in ounces, minutes, and then hours latched to each side. One cry and I freeze. Milk lets down and my shirt saturates. My body always so ready. But I know the hard part fades. The pain stops. The milk supply levels out. And I begin to yearn for the time we have together alone. The special magic of what it's like to have hold of a single starling, curling softly with natural need. You should know it's all going to end. I wish someone would have told me that soon I would have become unwired. I would have to give my milk for meds, my breasts for brown bottles lined shamefully on my nightstand, my husband bringing her into the bed and asking me to hold her while he warms the formula, arms crating awkwardly to stop her from rooting, my body limp and weak with pills. You should know it hurt. It really, really hurt to let her fly away like that.
Mm. I think let's try for a very short one.
Short. Okay, so this one's called Two for Joy, and this is sort of goes back to that sort of primal desire to be a mother. Two for Joy. Call me your girl, your darling dear ex uncreated. Wed and bed me in open ocean unknown. Offer up your errors, bury my body in burdens, strip me the purpose of wings and the brightness of blossom. Cover my flesh in chaos and fevers and fingers. Scratch a match on my walls and burn my name in flame. Release my signature in a strangle of smoke. Let your aches throb through me and mold my metals blank in our every ember. Split me and stitch me again and again, however you can, however many times it takes. Just make me a mother.
Thank you very much, Kate.
Thank you.